Hello and welcome, it's Chris from Christopher Hole Training. Welcome to this week's tutorial. We're going to be talking about the 3 steps to overcoming pain on the inside of your knee. Now, this is a common ailment that I get from runners, from cyclists, from everyday gym goers, and also just everyday people that live a sedentary life, let's say. Now, before we get into the 3 steps, just quickly mention my social media channels. So you can come to Twitter at Christopher Hole, you can come to Facebook, Christopher Hole Training, you can come to Instagram, Christopher Hole, and you can come to YouTube, Christopher Hole Training. So wherever you're watching this video, please go to one of the other ones, like and follow. It'd be great to have you there. And whichever one you're on, please do like the video, comment on the video. It'd be great to hear some feedback on it. It'd be great to hear if you've had this problem. If you have, just comment yes. If you haven't, comment no. It'd be great to hear who's learning what in the video. So if you pick up anything new in the video, again, please leave a comment what you've learned. So coming back on to what we're going to be talking about today, the 3 steps to overcoming pain on the inside of the knee. Now, the muscle that we're talking about is the Vastus Medialis. Now, the Vastus Medialis is a quadricep muscle. The easiest way to describe it, it's the inside quadricep muscle. So it's the one on the inside of the leg. And you can see it on this picture here in the middle. So it still joins into the same place as the other quads, but it goes and runs down the inside of the knee. Now, as you can see on this picture here, the cross is where the trigger point is. And then the sort of the shaded out red area is where you might feel the pain. So as you can see here, if you feel pain just tucked around the inside of the knee, then you've got the trigger point just above it. If you have a more radiating pain that kind of goes up the Vastus Medialis, then you've got this trigger point that's a bit higher up. So these are the trigger points that you want to be aiming for. Now, what is a trigger point? Well, it's a small knot, to keep it simple. It's a small knot in the muscle, and these can become painful. And trigger points are responsible for the majority of all pain syndromes. So this is what I would recommend being the first port of call. It's the least sinister, and it's potentially the easiest to overcome. So instead of going to explore some damage to the knee, or some ligament damage or tendon damage or whatever it might be, investigate here first. If you still have problems and pains afterwards, then go and investigate other symptoms or other causes of these symptoms. So what we want to be focusing on are the 2 trigger points. So we've got one just above the knee, and we've got one a bit further up the leg. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get into the 3 steps. And obviously we're going to be starting with step number 1. Step number 1 is foam roll the Vastus Medialis. So we've got this muscle on the inside of the leg that goes up the inside quad. So what we would do is we would come into this position. You can see me on my arms there. And then what I've got here is I've got my thigh on the foam roller. So that's the area that I'm working from, is the knee to the hip. Now what I want to do, or what you guys want to do, to be able to get the inside quad muscle, the Vastus Medialis, is you want to be pointing your toe outward. So in this picture, my toe should be pointing towards the screen here, or towards you that's watching the screen. What that will do is that will take this roller onto the inside of the leg, and then you want to roll from your knee all the way up to your hip. Then return and then roll again. Now you want to be doing that, let's just say 5 to 10 times. And what that's doing to the Vastus Medialis muscle is it's making it more pliable. It's hydrating the muscle, and what it's starting to do is break down these small knots that have formed in the muscle fibers. So if you can imagine dough when you're making bread, for example, when you first lay it down, it's quite tough and it's quite stiff. That's the same as what a muscle will be when it's tight and stiff and knotted. But as you foam roll it, or as you knead it, it starts to become more pliable and it starts to become more flexible. So breaking down of knots and making the muscle and stretching the muscle becomes that much easier. So once we've foam rolled it, we're now going to go on to step number 2. And that is frictions on the vastus medialis. So step 2 is frictions on the vastus medialis. Now, specifically, we want to be aiming at these trigger points. So one just above the knee and one further up the leg. And a friction is when you take a thumb or both of your thumbs, you place it on the trigger point and then you start making circles, or you start rolling from side to side or top to bottom. So you're not rubbing over the skin, you're pressing your fingers into the skin onto these muscles and then making little circles, going across the fibers and going with the fibers like so. But you obviously, this is on someone's back, but you want to be doing it on trigger point number 1 and trigger point number 2. Now, if you know which trigger point you have, or you think you know what trigger point you have, then you want to target that trigger point. And what that will do, that will further break down these trigger points because you're being more specific to the area that you want to be targeting. And then what that leaves us to do is the last step, number 3, which is stretch the vastus medialis. So again, we're focusing on this muscle here. Now this stretch is specifically for the group of muscles, for the quadricep muscles, but what you might find now that you've foam rolled it and now that you've had some frictions on the trigger points, you may find that when you do this stretch, that muscle, the vastus medialis, is feeling a bit more tender, and then you'll get a little bit more of a stretch from it. So what you can do, there's a number of ways of doing this stretch, but how I'm going to suggest that you do it is that you lie on your front. Now you can use a resistance band if your leg isn't that flexible, but if you can reach your foot or your ankle, then you can hold on with your hand around your ankle. But the idea is, let's just say you've got a resistance band, you put the resistance band around your foot, you lie on the floor, and then you flex at the knee. So you bend the knee, and then you start stretching this muscle or group of muscles on the front of the leg. And then what you might find is the vastus medialis begins to start stretching. And then as you start to lengthen the muscle, what starts to happen is not only have you kneaded it and made it more pliable, but you've also made it or given it a greater ability to stretch and be flexible. And then when we finish off, we just give it a few little movements so our brain can recognize that there is some extra movement in that muscle, and it will then reduce the symptoms of the trigger points and the tightness in the muscle. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. Hopefully it's given you a better idea of the steps to take to be able to overcome pain on the inside of your knee. And just before we finish, just a reminder, if you're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook or Twitter, it'd be great to have you there. Please do come along, like and follow. If you're watching this video on any of these, please do comment below and say what you've learned from the video, say what you found interesting from the video. It'd be great to hear your feedback. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris from Christopher Hole Training. I'll speak to you in next week's tutorial.